Ask you all please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Shelley Jacoby. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will be having Carol Lang join us after we approve the minutes. And with that, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the 19th of January meeting? Moved by Kevin Bobbitt, seconded by Bill Cummings. At least one correction I know of. We need to change Chuck Moa from absent to excused. And Pat has a couple to announce that she found.
I heard from at least three of you there. I only need to say once that Carol Lang is in Florida alone. So I will give you the second.
Are there any other corrections, additions, or deletions? Yes, Bill.
Just a correction, Bridie Belmare's last name is spelled incorrectly. Should be with an E instead of an A. And then I think Mr. Carragher's name below is spelled incorrectly as well. I think it's C-A-R-A-G-H-E-R. Okay.
Yeah, on our liaison thing, Bridie's last name is B-E-L-L-E-M-A-R-E.
Yes, sir. It's misspelled here in the minutes. At least the
Okay. All right. Anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes of the 19th as corrected, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Passes with 2 abstentions. At this moment in time, I'm going to go get this crazy telephone thing to work, and we're going to hook up Carol Lang, who, again, is stuck in Florida.
You read my mailbox. Leave them
Oh,
out.
yes, you're right. Got the one. Thank you.
The number you have reached, 321-777-3830, has been disconnected.
I dialed the wrong number. My fault.
Hello?
Hi, Carol. It's Stan.
Hi.
We are at the start of the Budget Committee meeting. And
All right.
to go through the legal requirements, you are where at this time?
Satellite Beach, Florida.
And is there anybody with you?
Not other than the cat.
That's Ginger, right?
That's correct.
Okay. We're going to be starting to do department budget reviews. We'll be starting with food service, then library, then maintenance, then district-wide.
Okay.
If you want to say something, speak up, and I'll try to remember to ask you also.
Okay. And did they point the speaker kind of at the microphone so I'll be able to hear better this time?
As a matter of fact, the technician had already done that when we got in.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. We're now going to start budget reviews. I'd ask our food service director to please come to the table. And Dave, you might like to introduce yourself to everybody in case they don't know who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stan. My name is Dave Zicki. I'm the Food Service Director for Merrimack. We have 6 schools in the district, and we service all schools with the food for our students. And how would you like to go about this, Stan?
Well, first of all, I just want to let everybody know, on the liaison team for this was myself, David Ilg, Jordan Guglielmi, and Carol Lang, and I just destroyed your last name, Jordan, and I apologize. Would you want us to go first, or would you like to go first?
Why don't you go ahead, and I'll see if you did it right.
We met with David on Monday at about 8:30 in the morning, and I am very pleased to say that the school district and David provided us with some very lovely breakfast snacks of blueberry muffins, bagels, cinnamon rolls, freshly brewed coffee, orange juice, and water.
Those were
And
whole
thank you.
grain bagels.
Yeah, that's right. They were
Point of
whole
information.
grain rich, just like they serve here in the school. The main thing I would just point out, and I want you to expand on it after the rest of the liaisons talk, is your POS system, what it's doing for you.
Okay.
And also your expense for the
Shelving unit.
shelving units that need to be replaced that are older than dirt.
Okay.
Jordan, do you have anything?
No, for me it was very informative, so let Dave take it.
Okay. And David?
No, nothing further. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
A minor thing to point out in case people didn't notice it, the vehicle repairs for the van are drastically down in the proposed budget, and that's because they just replaced that van, so now they're projecting they shouldn't have nearly as much in repairs to have to deal with. And the other thing was on the contract for the point of sale thing that I had asked about why the number varied from the actual 2014-15, and the answer was that was a one-time thing because when they upgraded the equipment for 1 year, that was included, but now it's back to the normal service contract price.
Put this on, you shut yours off. Kevin?
If you want me to
Why don't you
reiterate? Sure.
do it?
Carol was on the phone the other day when we had our liaison meeting, and basically the thing that she said that the van repair, service repairs for the vehicle would be lower for the upcoming budget because we're getting a new van, so there will be less. We put a amount in there for registration and oil changes, basically for that first year, and the service contract for the technology for our computer system. The prior year, the expenses included, it was new servers that we had purchased. They were still under contract, so the contract ran out halfway through the year. That's why it's up again next year. I think that's correct, Carol? Nope. We lost her.
I don't know if she heard anything you said.
Okay.
Hear any of that?
Bits and pieces, not all of it.
Okay.
Yeah, the fan hasn't turned off yet, and
Uh-huh.
the maintenance director's out trying to get it done.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Anything I needed to respond to?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Can you hear her now, Kevin?
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Okay, Dave, it's all yours.
the piece of equipment that I put in for replacement would be some shelving units that we have at the high school in our walk-in cooler. The shelves that we have in there are original from when the school was built and have undergone some rust and some corrosion being inside the cold unit. And we want to replace those with some Cambro plastic shelving with a lifetime warranty, and it's non-corrosive and they won't rust. So that's the one item that we have for
And
equipment
how
replacement.
old are those units that you're replacing?
They're probably almost 40 years old, maybe, I think. Is that possible?
Sure is.
They've lasted a long time, but not lifetime. So we hope to have those replaced as of next year. And the one thing we also talked about was the point of sale service that we have. So every school has computer systems. We've had that for a number of years, but I think the one thing that we touched on was that we do have online prepayment for parents that can go on, log into an account using My School Bucks and make deposits online. And the system has been working fairly well, and I just checked from September to current. We have $191,000 in parent deposits this year, so it's a sizable amount.
That saves you a lot of time
Yes, it does.
in line, and
What it does, it gives the parents an overview of what the child's account has in their balance, and it allows them to put money on using credit cards, and takes away the chance that the check might get lost or cash might get lost if they give it to the student to pass in. So I think the system is well worth the effort that we put into.
It also saves you the time to count cash at the end of the day.
Cash counting, and then any
And make
chance of putting a check into a wrong account, which can happen sometime if we have similar names or students' names that don't appear in the check. So it does help quite a bit.
And what's also happening with the whole grain mess would be the best way I could put it.
The whole grain mess. With the regulations that changed last year, we, as a food service for school districts, we were required to have our whole grains in our system. 100% of our grain products had to be a whole grain rich product, which means at least 50% of the grains have to be a whole grain product. And it's a great thing. Some of the things that the kids tend to shy away from, maybe tortillas and croutons and stuff like that. So the government is they're trying to work on making a little bit more flexibility in the system, and maybe they can reduce it to an 80% instead of 100%. And we won't know that until they go forward with the bill, but it'll give us a little bit more flexibility within the program, so that's a great thing.
Questions? Boy, they were a lot quieter tonight than we were Monday.
I know you guys.
Carol, you have anything to add?
Yeah, just one thing I didn't think to ask when we did our liaison meeting is what's the going cost of a full school lunch, and has that stayed stable over the last couple of years?
It's $250 for elementary level and $275 for the middle and high school levels, and it's been stable for 3 years. And we hope to keep it at that level rate for another year, at least.
Okay.
All set, Carol?
Yep.
Davis?
I just want to point out that the last time the cost of the school lunch was raised, three years ago, was it, Dave?
I believe so.
We were forced to raise it by the federal government.
Big
They
lunch,
came in and
yeah.
said that the school district has to charge a minimum amount. We weren't at that minimum amount, so we were forced to raise the price or lose the federal grants that go towards the food service.
That is correct.
So you have to follow all the rules and charge more for it.
Make sure it's whole grain.
In whole grain. How were they, anyways?
The muffins?
The muffins, yeah.
Muffins were outstanding.
There you go.
Very good.
I can't speak about the bagels, but I know at least one person ate one, and somebody had a cinnamon roll. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
And as I will say again, the maintenance director is attempting to get this lovely, noisy fan motor shut off, and he's not having a lot of luck. Next up is Library and Media Services. And our Library and Media Director is Nancy Rose, and the liaisons were John Hanson was the lead, Chuck Mower, and Lisa Mooney. And good evening, Nancy.
Hello, good evening.
Would you like to start off, or would you like your liaisons to start off?
I'll defer to John.
Okay, John, it's all yours.
Thank you, Nancy. So we did meet. Unfortunately, David and Chuck and Lisa couldn't attend. But is that better? You actually want to hear me?
Yay! Fans off.
I like the fan noise.
Got to bring in the supervisor to find the problem.
So we reviewed the whole budget. Actually, kind of went over it line by line. It's just a little bit south of $500,000. I think I added up the shekels. So one of the things that the library services do that, well, I'm pretty amazed is provide services across the whole district, right? So your work just isn't in the library, it's in the elementary school, it's in high school. So the line items were pretty much in line with previous year's budgets, with some notable exceptions, I guess. There was an increase of software licensing, somewhere around $34,000. Also, there was an increase on some line item that's responsible for document camera purchasing. Nancy showed me the document camera and basically gave an overview about what flexibility it does give the teachers. So it's a pretty nice piece of equipment, and I believe the purchase was going to level set everybody with document cameras, or at least there's an effort to achieve that. There was a decrease of a line item because equipment coming off from lease, I guess, was the driving factor there. So all in all, it was a pretty stable budget, pretty representative of about the budgets from past years. We did talk about some things that Nancy has going on within that budget, the capital improvement plan, which increases the IT infrastructure, switching, wiring, access, wireless access points, those types of things. Also, there was something about the mobile computing carts, IT on wheels, I guess. So, but all in all, that was it. Our gracious host brought donuts. That was about it.
They were
Sure.
not whole grain.
But delicious still.
Chuck, do you have anything you want to add? I know you couldn't make it, but did you have anything you wanted to add about that budget?
No, thank you very much.
Okay. Nancy, it's all yours.
I don't really have much to add, just a point of clarity that the budget for library media now incorporates technology as well, which is probably why it goes up. So, but I just wanted to make that clarification, that it oversees both of those things. So the software line and the capital improvement plan is the focus on the technology infrastructure. So, but otherwise, I think John captured, it's a sustaining budget. It's for ongoing operations. There's not a lot of new, big and different. It's mostly just ongoing. So,
Oh, I kind of forgot there was like it wasn't a huge thing, but I think you have membership into an organization in this budget that's sort of new.
It's a new district membership in a national organization that focuses for technology directors in education, and it looks a lot at policy, professional development, looking at big issues like privacy, student data privacy, things like that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Thank you.
And what's happening with all of the plans in the capital reserve, capital improvement program, I should say, for the different upgrades as to what's getting replaced, what's working, maybe what wasn't working, and you're going to switch a different direction?
Less changing directions as much as keeping up with changes in things like the speed of networking. The voice over IP installation, the phones, the new phone system is done. And we're almost done with getting projectors installed in every classroom. We've been upgrading servers across the board. We've been trying to do, we pull things together. So when we did the voice over IP, we did a lot of recabling, and also were able to upgrade switches at the same time. So we're able to get a lot done with some of these big projects. The Wi-Fi saturation is almost complete. However, the demand has gone up faster than the saturation. So now that we've got APs widespread, the demand for them will either have to add APs, access points, or we'll have to get different ones that have more capacity. But that's where it's not necessarily something that didn't work as much as the demand outpaces the ability to provide it. So.
Okay. Bill?
Is that pent-up demand, do you think? I should turn my mic on, sorry. Is that pent-up demand then, the needing to add? In other words, where do you see this in 5 years? Do you see just a completely different system?
I don't think it'll be completely different. I think we're going to have more access points that have more capacity, and the demand just continues to grow. And I wouldn't say it's gone up in such a way that we haven't been able to accommodate. But there are days when it's slow, or there's days when too many people trying to do something like video can get in the way. But we're upgrading from the outside in, so we have increased our bandwidth, but we also need to increase the speed at which we can do the network between the buildings and then within the building. So all of those pieces have to get upgraded, and so those are all the things that now we're focusing on. Now that we've got a bigger pipe and some access points, now we need to increase the speeds to all of those things.
Jordan?
I just want to say, I think it's a little deceptive to still call it, the library budget on here, because, the more I'm hearing and learning, we're all aware of technology, we're all aware of the demand, whether it's, you said it's outpacing the ability to put in Wi-Fi. I just want to, just for point of information, that anybody that looks and says, oh, it's the library budget, really, I think would be wrong if they looked at it and realized a great amount of it is on technology, and it's technology beyond technology in the physical library. That a lot of what you've discussed has taken place in all the schools and all the classrooms.
I think if you think of it as the technology and library services for the entire district. So I agree with your point, though, and I think it's just historical, and it's hard to remember to do it. And it also evolved, so in our accounting systems, it still says library.
Yeah.
And if you've ever worked with an accounting system, you know how hard it is to go back and change a top-level name like that. So
There's people behind you making faces.
Well, perhaps.
One account at a time.
yeah.
No, it's just important, I think. I mean, there's people that are learning about this budget and watching at home, and they say, oh, my God, look how much money is spent at the library. And I just, I think it's really important to note that it really, in today's day and age of technology, this budget is way beyond the library. I mean,
absolutely.
it's very extensive. So
I think that perhaps next year, maybe the superintendent might want to just, even if it's just for the budget committee, list it as technology and library and media services, and that might give a better sense to the person watching this at home on TV as to what really is done. Because the library is not just books anymore.
Nope. That's
You know,
right.
It's a lot of other things. And, you've evolved with that. In regard to the increase in the software licenses, was it a case of more licenses you had to buy, or prices went sky high?
It's several things. It's annual increases in licenses that we already have. It's additional software because there's more things that teachers are looking to do with software. There's a few things that we pay for biannually. So something that we didn't cover last year because we buy it 2 years or 3 years at a time. And then the other thing is the federal program that helps pay for some of the software that we use, the web hosting. They eliminated that from the funding, and so now we're paying the full cost for that, which we hadn't been in the past. So it's a combination of things, but again, the demand is increasing, so.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, relative to access points getting used up, I think you had mentioned if you increase the bandwidth, someone's going to have a device to take up the bandwidth, right? So you're supporting a whole lot more devices.
Yeah. Well, and kids walk in the building or teachers with their phones on. If they're looking for a wireless connection, they'll find one. And then all of those things take up. And so that's just part of the aches and pains of growing a service that we've only been offering for a few years at a pace that, people are expecting Starbucks quality service or, where you can go and get free Wi-Fi, where we're trying to deliver instruction over that same Wi-Fi. So it's a challenge.
Now, you're supporting how many people compared to the local Starbucks?
It's on any given day with all of the devices, it's 2,000 to 2,500. So with Wi-Fi, not all the network.
That's a good-sized office building. Now, in that technology, you're restricting where the students and stuff can go?
Yeah,
through
that
the
we
Wi-Fi?
filter. We have to filter by law, and we
Okay.
do that based on categories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one.
Yes, Carol, go ahead.
Okay, this doesn't appear as a line item in your budget, but you seem to be the logical person to ask the question of. Personnel costs. I'm wondering, first off, your staffing levels now compared to over the last couple of years, are they the same, lower, higher, what are they? And then the follow-on to that, this is my guess, and you can either tell me I'm right or if I'm wrong, correct me. I'm thinking you have less students, therefore, in that sense, less need of staff, but that's probably offset because you're providing more services on the technology side of things, and that's probably using up what slack would have been created by the lower number of students. So if you could comment on that.
You hit the nail on the head, Carol. So we did add one technician position last year. So we now have 2 district technicians. We have 1 network administrator. And then I have a technology educator in the elementary, upper elementary, middle school, and high school. And then 1 coordinator that goes between, plus the librarians and the library assistants. Those are the staff that sort of fall within my area. But other than the adding of the technician, things haven't changed. But the demand, we've been adding devices over the last several years. And so the additional technicians, that position, they're both very busy. So keeping up is still difficult.
So essentially, you're sort of reinforcing what I said, that the additional person is because of the technology demands, and the personnel, as far as what we would have traditionally considered library functions, is pretty well stable.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
All set, Carol?
Yep.
Any other questions? Have a lovely night, Nancy.
Thank you. You too.
Next up on budget reviews is the Maintenance Department. And for those of you that don't know him, that's Tom Trousseau. He's the maintenance director. And the other guy over there with the glasses, see? Oh, yeah, Matt Chevenel. All our business manager. The liaisons for the maintenance budget was John Hanson was the lead, David Ale, myself, and Jordan. And Tom, what is your pleasure?
I would love to have the liaison start, please.
Okay. John?
Okay, let's see, the school district budget is 72 million proposed, right?
No, this is the maintenance.
I know.
Oh,
And
okay.
of that, Tom's budget consumes 3.7 million. Does that sound right?
It's in the neighborhood.
So, going over it line item by line item, it's, relatively static for a lot of line items, but there are a few line items that were driving some increases, and Tom or Matt or someone supplied some supporting photos of those driving items. And correct me if I'm wrong, there's a HVAC unit on the cafeteria roof where we're setting that needs replacement. It's 30-plus years old. I think it was sort of proffered to change that out last year, but somehow that got deferred to this year. Another item that was kind of unexpected was a middle school roof. Upon inspection, a routine inspection that Tom does annually or semi-annually, found some pretty substantive splits between the matting or the materials where they join together. And it has necessitated the replacement of a roof. It might have been sooner than everybody would have wanted. I think the roof is 10 years old or 7 years old or
11 years old.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's gone through its expected lifespan, and now we need to replace it. Another line item that drives it is the replacement of the high school track. And I think the final item is there's groundwork needed at Thornton's to support the pre-K playground. So I think that raised kind of a line item by a little more than $2 million than before. But those were the driving factors to it. That was about all that I had. Well, another thing is, like library and media services, Tom's budget goes across the district, right? It supports everything within the district. So that was about it.
David, do you have something to add?
No. Thanks for your time.
Okay. Jordan? I just add a few things. The maintenance budget's the budget where a lot of things get put into, and it's also the place where a lot of cuts get made. One of the things that was in Tom's budget was paving for the front of the high school out here in the loop, in the back. That has been removed from the budget. They decided that that could wait a while and that would save approximately $250,000. The HVAC unit, in other words, that nice large fan that even when it's off, it's squeaking and making noise. Tom, if you could take us through what you found when you had a little problem in the cafeteria and what showed up. And that's the front picture. That's the unit that's up on the roof now that's scheduled to be replaced.
Okay, I did happen to share when the Budget Committee came in and met with me, the liaisons came and met with me. We talked about the HVAC unit up right over us right now. And one of the issues we talked about is this summer when we had a very heavy rainstorm. And I had a great concern. The roof was already completed in the section. and all of a sudden, water was pouring into the kitchen area. Very panicked there for a few seconds. We ran upstairs to see what it was. Was it the roof that we just put on, which would be a huge problem? It was not. It was actually the HVAC unit itself. It's rusted so bad, water was seeping in. Not only did it seep into the units, but the drain holes, which naturally occur inside the unit to drain the water out, it's caught by a pan. There was so much rust in those drain holes, it was unable to drain. So myself, another mechanic, went up there, took a 5-gallon bucket, and emptied out the drain holes, and it ended up filling up a quarter of the entire 5-gallon bucket with rust flaking from the inside of the unit. That is the kind of condition that that unit is in, besides being at a point where it's almost impossible to repair it. It is rusting from the inside out. Even though, as you can see in these photos, that first photo, it looks in pretty poor condition, well, it's rusted even worse on the inside. So that would be my comment about the first photo that we have.
The photo's dated 2006. Is that in fact accurate?
Well, it was taken for 2006, but this is the unit that we are doing, yes. And I think the reason why the 2006 picture was there is that's when we probably started talking about it.
And it hasn't gotten any shinier since then?
No.
No, actually, it looks a lot worse now.
That's the last picture. It's the last time we were able to get on the roof because of all the ice.
Yeah.
Okay, Tom, continue, please.
Well, if we just take a little walk through this photo, the stuff that was provided, we come up and we see a yellow line running across the roof, and then we see 2 yellow lines running up to that point. Our proposal is doing roughly 2/3 or 3/4 of the roof in this first shot, and that's what we're looking for in this upcoming budget. The whole roof itself is in great need, as was mentioned earlier, of repair. Roughly last year, I did some patching, roughly 1,800 lineal feet of patching in that 1 year to try to get us through. And I think so far we've made it, but it's in a condition where I'm not so sure it's going to make another year. So that's why it's in here. That's why we think it's necessary to do. That's why we have a concern, and it really protects one of our biggest assets is in the district. So that was our first bite. And next year you're going to see in the budget probably the other quarter or the other third of the roof. And if you as you flip those pages, you also see the...
Can I stop you 1 second?
Sure.
Could you also please explain the type of roof that was originally put on there 11 years ago and what it's being replaced with?
Originally, it was put on, and I'm going to call it a rubber roof. It was certainly that type of rubber roof. It was just a stretched membrane put across and sealed down. It had a 10-year life to it. The roof we're proposing to go back is a mineral-based roof. Unfortunately, we can't go back with a gravel-based roof, but the mineral roof will also have, the new one will have a 30-year warranty, no cost, no dollar limit to it. So for 30 years, we'll be totally under warranty. And every time I look at a roof, my first thought is that roof should last 5 to 10 years beyond its average life. That's just the way I look at it. So if I'm looking at this roof and I say we have a 30 years life, I'm looking 35, 40 years probably. Unfortunately, that didn't happen at the middle school. And we do have some roofs, and it happened to me also at ME. There was one roof there that the life expectancy was 1 or 2 years after the warranty. It happens, not often. I don't anticipate it happening again, but with putting on a longer-term roof, a mineral-based roof, I'm comfortable that we're going to have long-term protection for us.
In terms of cost, are there other types of roofs you could put on there? And if there are they got to have a significant initial cost savings, and what are the downsides?
Well, we could always go back with a short-term roof if we wanted to. And the cost saving, there would definitely be cost savings. I mean, it could be in the 10% range, maybe even a little more than that. But it's always been my thought, since we're looking at roofs entirety. When I looked at the roofs, I looked at how much roofing do we have in the school district. And when we looked at it, we came up with the number of 11.25 acres. Out of 11.25 acres, it's roughly 73 different sections. So with that said, if we put on a 10-year roof, as we did the last time, we're going to end up replacing roofs in a greater rate than we're doing now. And it really puts us in a predicament where we're going to have roofs that could be put on today, and in 10 years they're going to fail. We're not even going to get through all the roofs we have now to replace before we'd have to start replacing them. Ideally, the thought is, once we get through this, at some point, looking out probably a few more years in a SIP, that we're going to have some places we're going to be able to pause and not have to do roofs. But at this point, as you can see, as you look into the SIP, it does seem to be some degree the next 5-7 years we're going to have a roof continuously. But we're going to be able to approach them at a pace that we can handle them and that we're trying to budget for them. Unfortunately, I think that this year we were it kind of caught up on us. We were not expecting it. Things happen. I understand that. Not overly happy about it. But middle school roof did come in. The good thing is that for the last couple of years we've been doing them, so we don't have 2 or 3 failures in a year. And we're comfortable now, since when we do this roof, that we're going to be leaning forward and doing the right thing in the future.
So it might be 10 or 15% more, but
Correct.
you're getting well over 3 times the warranty.
Yes.
So in actuality, it's going to cost a lot less.
The bottom line, yes.
And the rationale for not doing the whole roof at once?
The size of the bite, to be honest, just the amount of money, that's $1.6 million. It's just too much.
Matt, was there ever any consideration of bonding the roof?
No, the board had never talked about floating a bond. There could have been some casual conversation early on, but the feeling was we have the roof program going. That section could be delineated or listed out as it, or identified, however you want to put it, as being more in need than the others. So the board decided to go for that particular area, for that particular cost.
Okay. Anything else, Tom? I'm sorry to have interrupted you.
I'm good. I think this.
Davis.
The boards, not only the current board, but past boards have taken the position that maintenance or upkeep items should not be bonded. They should be in the operating budget. It's a cost of doing business. And we don't want to run the risk of, in this situation, if we bonded the middle school roof and unfortunately it didn't pass, well, as Tom said, we can't go another year with it. So that's why it's in the operating budget.
Chuck Mower.
It seems that for any number of years, the school district has been plagued with the questions of new roofs. And a number of different proposals have been considered by past boards. It seems that this is an aggravated problem, certainly as we've heard tonight, that if we don't immediately act on something, that it's simply going to overwhelm our ability to continue upward motion and roll back like Sisyphus climbing the mountain. What kind of serious attention to the overall roof problems that were experienced, are experiencing, and are projected to experience, other than the board decided this year to try this?
Well, it's not so much that we decided to try this. Tom has a plan set out, and it's reflected in the capital improvement plan of cycles where the roofs, we expect them to have to be replaced just because they're out of warranty and they're beyond their expected life, like what Tom said. Unfortunately, the middle school roof didn't give us the 5 to 10 years that we were hoping that it would, and the problem, mainly with the design of the roof that was installed, popped up in a short period of time. Last year, if I'm not mistaken, Tom, you went up there, and other than the patching, the roof was fine and didn't appear as if it needed to be replaced. Then all of a sudden, with the winter or whatever, elements, that it worsened, and when the snow melted, Tom realized we might have a problem here, and it's beyond the feasibility of patching it.
Well, the problem seems to be more substantial than some unfortunate act of God. And I would certainly like to see the maintenance department and the school board revisit these roof situations so that we don't continue to suffer disagreement and controversy over how long a roof should last or shouldn't last, or what we thought this or thought that, and 5 years better than what's recommended, but we're really 6 years short from what it should have been, and so forth. I just don't think that that's an adequate management response on the part of the school district, and the school board, to handle these roof problems.
Well,
my opinion.
I certainly understand. I hear what you're saying, and in the past practice, that I feel very comfortable from a management standpoint that our plan has been working up until this point. Matt, you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to make mention that for the past 7 years, we introduced, around 7 years ago, Tom introduced the roof with the 30 to 35-year warranties. And the board has been consistent in putting those types of roofs on when there's been a replacement. So we're no longer going by what was done in the past. We're moving forward with good quality roofing materials that will stand the test of time. Tom and I joke that any roof that we have put on a building together during our tenure will never be here to see it replaced, which is kind of a good feeling. It's kind of bittersweet, too, Tom, because we're not going to be here 35 years from now.
Matt, are you telling me that this is hand-wringing without a purpose and that everything is, in fact, fine now?
No, it's not fine now.
Well, wherein does the problem lie relative to the adjudication of such a serious cost consideration in the district?
After around 5 to 7 years, if we do a roof, and this is the highest blip in the entire roof program that Tom has developed, then you'll be at a period where the warranties will kick in. You'll have a span of like 10 years when you're not going to be doing any roofs. That's the time to take money, put it in a capital reserve fund, because you're not spending it on roofs, put it in a reserve fund, and then take that reserve money, so when the roofs come about again in a cycle, there'll be money there in the bank to try and alleviate the dips and the valleys and the spikes. Does that make any sense at all?
Well, you'll just have to excuse me that I don't have another life to live to anticipate that kind of extended outcome. I was looking for something a little bit more immediate, as there was such hand-wringing over how a roof failed and how we're just going to fall backwards and all of this sort of thing and so forth. So I guess I will just bide my time and see what transpires. I'm not terribly impressed, I will tell you that.
I think one of the problems that happened is that when the roof was put on the middle school when it was constructed, it was put on and they needed to, I hate to say the word cut costs, but it's a bid roof, so it didn't have the warranty that we have nowadays. I don't even know what the standard warranty was back 11 years ago.
They vary between the roof.
Yeah.
types of roof you have.
But I think that that's part of the problem. And I think what got exacerbated was with the absolutely horrible winter and snow load we had. I'll be quite frank, Chuck, I'm surprised we didn't have more major roof problems, even with the new roofs with all the snow.
Well, it strikes me that the people sitting at home, hoping that all is well in the management of their capital assets in the district, expect a good deal more than to hear the kind of bureaucratic pointing in reverse about what this may or might have been then by some other board and all of those kinds of things. I know as I grow older, I grow more weary of that kind of bureaucratic shuffling of things. It seems evident to me that there is a problem, and as a taxpayer in the town of Merrimack, I simply don't feel that on this large financial issue, I don't believe I'm being well represented by a clear plan, articulated and sound, developed by a professional engineering firm.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Sure. When's the last time we put a roof on with a 10-year warranty?
The middle school roof.
That was how many years ago?
Well, 13 years ago.
Thank you.
See, I guess if I could make one comment. Going forward from that point on, everything we have done has been 30, 35-year roof warranties. So we haven't continued the sins of the past. We've gone forward over the past 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So you've gotten value and the assets are protected. We know we can't all of a sudden go forward, raise $5 to $10 million and replace all the roofs at once. Just not feasible. So that's why we chose to do them year by year as they get to the point where they're reaching a failure type situation where we go ahead and budget for it and put them in. So there has been a plan, and there's a plan that we could show you that's 30 years long that goes into perpetuity that Tom has mapped out, and that's what we've been following. And we have been dealing with an engineer who comes on and walks the roof with us, and we've done thermal imaging of all the roofs that we have, so we know where there's wet spots, where there isn't wet spots before they become leaks. So I think we have been proactive on this. We've been trying to get ahead of the curve, and everything we've done from 7, 8, 9 years forward has been very proactive in putting quality materials there, so you won't have to keep replacing them, that they'll pay for themselves over time and give you good value.
I think one. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think one of the important things is to remember where we started. Where were we seven years ago before we started the process of putting good long-term roofs? At that point, we were roughly our entire roofs. 73% of them were off warranty. It was a huge, huge issue. So at that point, we started looking at it and laying out a plan. What's our long-term plan at that? Now, I understand what you're saying. There are bumps along the road. This failure is unexpected. But the long-term plan is still in place. We looked at it. We said, we got a huge problem coming up. We got to start taking apart this year by year, trying to get everybody to understand what we want to do long-term with this. Now, with that, 73% of our roofs being off, we had major issues. And for the first couple years, every time we did a roof, it was a major failure. Did not happen, has not been the same case in the last couple years. This roof, I would tell you, it's absolutely in that other category. It is a failure of the roof, and unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of long-term planning, but right now the plan is consistent, and our goals will be met. Just like the SIP has addressed roofs going out, meaning that we looked at the roofs. I look at each roof that we have in this district twice a year. That's why I knew the middle school roof was in trouble when it was. If I didn't, if we only looked at it once every 5 years, then we could have had an issue where, rightfully so, you could have come in and said, is anybody looking at the roofs? And is there a plan? The fortunate or not fortunate part is that we did have a plan, and that's why we did recognize the problem with the middle school roof. Unfortunately, we have to address it, but what we're seeing is long-term, we're in a much better place since we've been proactive in the last 4 or 5 years, and we continue to replace our roofs. We're starting to bring that percentage of roofs that were very high out of warranty into less and less roofs that are
And
not.
how much is less and less?
Well, 73 is, I believe last year was down to somewhere about 64%, which isn't a lot less, but it's certainly better. If we did no roofs, we might be at 80 or 90% out of warranty. So there will be some point when we catch up. Do I know exactly? No. Unfortunately, we have problems like this roof at the middle school. And the middle school is a huge problem because I expected, if you looked on my diagram, it was 5 years out. I thought that was realistic to expect 5 more years out of it.
Well, as one individual in the town of Merrimack, I would expect something that would demonstrate a better outcome in a shorter period of time than the next 30 years.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else on roofing?
Stan?
Yes, Carol.
I have several questions. I don't know if you want me to just address my roofing questions now and hold the rest for later, or how you want me to...
Why don't you do roofing now, and then we're going to move on to the track after the roofing.
Okay. Several questions on the roofing. The first is, if you don't count the middle school, how much other roofing do we have in the district that has what I will loosely refer to as this cheaper, kind of 10-year warranty type roofing?
There's no other roofs that have a 10-year warranty. We do have other rubber roofs where we had roofs vary between 10, 15, 20, and 30 years of roofing that we have now. Do we have other roofs that are rubber membranes? Yes. Do we expect, I expect fully that all the other roofs will stick to the SIP plan that we've laid out and forward, and I don't anticipate any more huge problems on roofs as long as we continue to address it the way we are.
Okay, my next question is, you said gravel wasn't an option, and why is that?
The gravel surface up on a middle school wasn't designed to handle the load, so it's going to take a mineral surface sheet as a cap sheet instead of putting gravel up there like we do on every other roof that we have, because it's just design of the building.
So that's a structural issue that at this point we're stuck living with.
Correct.
Okay. My next question is, maybe there's something I'm missing here, but if this roof is in such bad shape, I'm questioning how we can have any degree of certainty or comfort that if we're only repairing part of that roof, that the part we're not addressing isn't going to fail before we get to it.
I think we're taking as big a bite of that roof as we feel that we can financially. And that the patching this year seems to hold up at this point, and it would be an ongoing, we would continue to address the matter as it went on.
Yeah, that I'm struggling with this issue because on one hand I'm hearing this is a crisis, we have to replace this roofing, and yet we have other exact same date of installation, exact same quality of roofing, same contractor, everything's the same, but we can live with this other part, and I'm very concerned about how it can be such a major issue for one part of it and the other part we can live with.
Stan?
It basically, I'll get to it in a minute, David. It basically, Carol, was, as was stated, it was a money question, and they did not want to add $1.6 million or more to do the whole roof. And they picked the biggest section they could do and logically do it at one time. And that's why.
I understand the money issue, but what I don't understand is if the roof is so bad that it's critical, then it becomes critical despite money. So normally I would say, yes, let's defer things till we can afford them. But if the roof is really that bad, then money becomes a secondary issue to me.
Well, but the only thing I could tell you is, let's hope that it doesn't collapse between this coming year and the next year. And the other possibly good news, because it did get brought up at the meeting with Tom, is that the bids for the roof job pending school district meeting approval are going to be open soon. And with the dramatic decrease in prices of petroleum products, we might find that it's going to cost a little bit less than had been planned. So
that's something I raised at the last full budget committee meeting too, and what I'm hoping is that if the bids do come in lower than anticipated, that the maintenance department and the school board and central office would be open to considering doing more of this roof that's in such critical condition to get as much of it done as possible for the money available.
Tom, you want to, could you, if you had bids that come in substantially less and effectively giving you extra money, so to speak, could you do more and more of that roof at one time or not?
Well, I think physically, as far as if you had a contractor who was willing to be able to do that in the time frame, they would get the crew there and the resources there to do the roof during the time frame that it needs to be done. As far as the decision to do more than what we have on the CIP, that would have to be something that would be brought to the school board, and that's solely a school board decision to make. Second of all, let's not use the phrase roof collapse. That makes me a little bit nervous. There's no such thing as a collapse here. This is all steel bar joist and corrugated steel on the roof. There's nothing that collapses at all.
Davis.
I just basically was going to say what you said, Stan, that it comes down to a financial issue. We have to spend within our means. While I appreciate Carol's fervor in wanting to do the whole roof at the same time, this is the first year in a long time that our budget is above default. So if we start piling on too much, then we run the risk of the voters going for a default budget, and then we're forced to make cuts, and we're back to where we started and possibly not doing the entire roof.
And that would be a problem.
Can I respond to that?
Go ahead, Carol.
I, in general, would normally agree with what Davis is saying. My concern is when I hear, what sounds to me like a dire assessment of the condition of that roof, that concerns me. And if that condition assessment is not an exaggeration, then I start to say, okay, then maybe we need to do the whole roof. And if we need to do the whole roof, maybe we need to look further to find something else we can cut to make up the difference to try and keep the budget under control. If it's not as dire as I'm hearing, that's a different story.
Well, Carol, you and anybody else in the Budget Committee will have the opportunity to make adjustments to the operating budget next Tuesday night, if you so choose. Or you could wait until deliberative session.
I'm really looking for Tom's expert opinion of, is it as dire as it's been made to sound, or is it bad but not critical?
Tom?
I would say it's in a point where we definitely know it needs to be repaired. We saw tears and rips, as you could see in the diagrams in front of you, that were not there. It's hard to put on look into the, as they say, the crystal ball, and to see what's going to end up happening at the end of this year. And I don't really have an answer for you. What's going to happen by next summer? Will there be more tears and rips, or will it be somewhat stable? All we know for sure, I kind of deal in what we know. And what we know is the roof looked perfectly fine a year ago, and then within that year, we've had some major issues. And it leads me to believe that things aren't going away, it's going to get worse. I'm in hopes, and I believe, that we can wait and we can hold off and do the second part next year. I'm more comfortable, obviously, taking the bigger bite this year, because if there is an issue, we're getting more of it out of our way ahead of time. And it is a frustrating thing, and I'm sure it's frustrating for anybody who looks at this long term and says, why didn't we foresee it coming? And unfortunately, there's certain parts of construction that are unforeseen. Doing the long-term plan kept us in put us in the position we are now, and I think it's much better than we could have been if we didn't do anything.
Also, if I can ask one other question. I know we haven't gotten to open the bids yet for this time, but in general, how much per square foot have we been paying for this type of roof? Like the type we're talking about putting on, not what we had to start with.
It varies. What number we carry roughly $23.50 a square foot. And it depends on each year, which contractors come. We've had a year when we did a roof at Reed's Ferry, and we were carrying some money, and we had 4 contractors. 3 of them came in over our budget, and 1 of them was within our budget, and thank God we had 1 within our budget. I've had years where we've had all 4 of them within budget, so it depends. The economy drives it. The middle school roofs, it has a lot of stuff, I'm going to tell you, on top of it. That could complicate things a little bit as far as pricing. I'm pretty comfortable. I'm actually very comfortable thinking that we're going to come in within budget, but I just don't know that number.
All set, Carol?
Yeah.
Davis?
Well, I wanted to respond to Carol's asking of Tom for his expert opinion. In the past 4 years that I've been on the board this time, Tom has come to us with his roof plans and has said, we need to do this building this year, we need to do this building next year. And we've come back to him for one reason or another and said, we've got other things, not that the roof isn't important at whatever building he's talking about, but we have other things that we need to concentrate on. Can you adjust this? And Tom has come back and said, yes, I feel comfortable with that. For Tom Tussaud to come to us this year and say, we cannot put this off any longer, that tells me something right there. And I would consider that to be a valid opinion and act upon it.
David Ilg.
I have 2 questions. So this second part is going to be...
Put the mic up a little closer to you, please.
The second part will be required next year?
Yes.
Okay. Would there be any noticeable savings to doing it all at once?
We'll find that out Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing we did when we bid this year, we put out the bid, we kind of put out the bid to do the section that I've spoke to you about, and also another request of how much it would cost us to do the whole thing, too.
Okay.
So, as Matt says.
When will we know? Will we know that information? By Tuesday?
Yeah, we're going to share it with the board Monday night.
Okay. Thanks.
So we'll get that information Tuesday night and can make an informed decision as to what you might want to recommend or not recommend. All right, I think we've kind of talked about the roofs a lot. I think we need to move on to the track. Something near and dear to my heart. Not that I'm a track star, but I can honestly say I helped get that track out in the back there, and with the help of the Army Corps of Engineers and a lot of other good people in town like Pat McGrath. But the time has come for it to be replaced. Tom, would you like to explain to everybody about that?
Okay, the track that you see now is at its end of its life. We've talked about it a couple of years. Matter of fact, one of the reasons I'm going to tell you why I'm confident that it is, we've been dealing with a vendor that's been doing repairs for us for probably the last 10 years, or maybe even a little longer than that. Talking to the school, the track coach, the AD, everybody's very comfortable with this vendor, and he's been providing us with very good service. He informed me as of last year, and as we were talking about it last year, and it got pushed off a little bit into this coming year, and that he would no longer be able to repair it and to guarantee there would be safe passage on the track. So he says for his company's reputation and for how he would feel about the safety is that he would not repair it. And with those recommendations, we went into the process of looking to replace the track and what we need to do. 2 different proposals came. It did come to the school board, and this is the one they voted on, going with the 6 lanes around the track and 8 lanes straight away. That would put us more in compliance with, I believe I'm talking of state regulations for us to be able to run on more meets as far as the state goes.
Yeah, when you do the 100-meter, 100-yard, 100-meter, right, dash, you do it in heats of 8. It's not a time trial. It's the winner of the first 8 goes up against the winner of the second 8, and they just keep going forward and forward and forward. So this would help us out with us being in compliance with the rest of the state as far as how we hold our track meets, and just it would be easier to facilitate them when you're having 8 people going all at once.
Now, again, this is our budget number. We will put it out to bid, and we'll see where we'll come in from that. And that's all I have on the track.
And this is going to include ripping up the whole existing old track now, laying down a new base.
Correct.
And putting in, from what Matt said, some conduit underneath it for any possible lighting that might be added years down the road to the football field or other electrical outlets.
It would definitely address the drainage. It would build a small a retaining wall because the 2 additional lanes would come closer to the stands, and it would take in consideration some drainage out on the field too, moving water away from some areas that would prolong the life of the track.
Yeah, just if I can add, we've been working with Steve Keach of Keach Nordstrom Associates, civil engineer, for the past, year or so,
A couple of years, yeah.
on this project, and he's come up with the design of the retaining wall, what the drainage should look like along the side, and he's going to be working with us to spec out the subsurface specifications of what the track should be at when it comes time to go ahead and do it and put it out to bid. That number that you see there is his budget number as far as his estimation as to what it should cost right now.
And one of the things that was looked at by Planning and Building Committee, and I believe also by you folks, was a turf field for the football, soccer, etc. And it can be put in after the track without damaging the track, is what we found out.
Yeah, that's all possible.
Yes,
It's a little more effort and whatnot, but yeah, it can be whenever the time comes. That remember that's $1 million price tag, so that'll be
Keep going.
keep going. Yeah, keep going.
96.
It's $1 million, whatever it is. That's a big price tag, and so that'll be a conversation unto itself. And we didn't want to tie this up with the track, because the track needs to get done.
Right. And the football field as it sits now is very functional.
Yes.
Questions about the track? Kevin Bobbitt.
So this is in next year's operating budget. Was there any consideration to put it as a warrant article, or I don't know what the right terminology is, but this is obviously something that's got a long life. This one, the current one was built 15, 20 years ago?
About 13 to 15 years ago.
And-
The reason for putting it in the operating budget is that it is beyond its, you can't use it as a track anymore. It's too
Understand.
dangerous. And if you put that as a separate warrant article, and that warrant article got voted down, you're not going to have a track next year for the students to use, because no means no. And you wouldn't be able to then take $400,000+ out of somewhere in the budget and go spend on the track, because the warrant article would have said, no, they don't want it.
So that was the sole reason to do it?
That's why you put it in the operating budget.
Although
Same reason why the roof's in the
No,
operating budget.
I understand. So, but that also means if the budget doesn't pass and we go to default, this could also not get built.
Matt, you want to address that?
Is that
Yeah,
not a
well,
possibility?
if we go to default, default is $800,000 less than the proposed operating budget. So it would be up to the board as how to allocate the money. They may look at cuts in other areas, and remember, they can either choose to take the default budget or get together and hold another special meeting to come up with an alternative budget and vote on that again. So they could go forward, have another series of meetings, be before the budget committee again, go through the process as if it was brand new, and we could come up with a budget that was $200,000 less or something like that, and then present that. So even if the budget were to fail, it's not to say that the track wouldn't get done, but maybe something else would be deferred in order to make this happen. I don't know. That's up to the school board.
Okay, thank you. A couple other questions. Do we have an estimate for a direct replacement, not an expansion?
Yeah, that was considered. It's slightly less than this, but it.
I assumed it'd be a little less, but I
It's,
didn't know if you had a number.
yeah, it is a little, probably, what, $50,000, $60,000 less, maybe? What do we got?
I think it was this was 430, the other one was 290. The other one, I believe, was right around 290, but that was a board decision that they'd prefer to go with this one.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it didn't include the retaining wall.
Right.
It didn't include
It
the
would fit
extra
in the exact
drainage.
footprint, I
Right.
presume.
Right, but it
It had the
would
6
not
lanes.
have the 8-lane straightaway, it would have a 6-lane straightaway, exactly what we have now. Without the additional drainage, it wouldn't be addressed also. That-
Okay. Okay, thank you. And final question, is the track usable now? I mean, if this,
Yeah, that's usable.
could it be used for spring track
Yes, yes.
without any repairs? Because it can't
No,
be further
no,
repaired.
what we have just went through, I'm going to say a month ago or so, a couple months ago at this point, we did some repairs before winter set in. It is certainly our plan and the school board's plan. We talked about this last year. They put some additional money in to patch the track to make sure we got through, to ensure that we would have a spring season. I did talk to the track company, and they're confident that they can make a safe track for our students to run on, and that's what we're going with.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anybody else on the track?
Yeah, I do.
Carol, go ahead.
I was, maybe, I'm certainly no expert in tracks, but I somehow expected the life of the track once we built it, the original one, to be longer than it was. And so I'm wondering if the technology has improved so that if we replace this, are we expecting a longer lifespan for the new track?
The life, Tom, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but from what I heard in talking to the people in the track company and people basically who deal with this thing on a daily basis, is if you get 10 to 15 years out of a track, you've gotten your full value out of the track. So I didn't think we were expecting it to go further. I didn't think we expected it to go this far at all. So.
I think when we look at...
Okay, so maybe my expectations for the life of a track weren't realistic. Like I say, I'm no expert on that.
I think when we look at a track or any expensive item. Our natural thought, except mine is obviously maximum or longer than what they say. 15 years is what they expect. I would be in the same boat with you. I would want more out of it, but we got exactly what they thought we would, unfortunately.
When they quote that 15 years, are they saying 15 years without any substantial patching, or are they talking 15 years total life, including whatever's patchable?
They're thinking 15 years of total life. Every 5 to 7 years it should be sprayed in between there. So I would expect when this new track goes in 5 to 7 years out, that we would respray it, and that would be another cost to it. And that's just part of putting another top layer on there without repairing the base.
Okay, and my other question is, if you're comparing total costs, how much, and I know you'd have to sort of guess on this, but if we do the track now and the field later, as opposed to the two combined, if you combine those two costs, is it going to cost us significantly more in the end by doing them as two separate projects?
No. You're going to be using
Okay.
two different vendors, and they're not going to be able to build both of them at the same time anyway. You got to build one and then the other one, or they'll be tripping over one another.
I'm remembering something from a while back. There was some talk about if we built the track now, then we were going to have to build some kind of ramps over the track when we want to do the field down the road. And so I'm just looking at it and saying, are we, in the end, spending more money by doing it in pieces?
Well, no, they have ramps that will accommodate going over the track and let the heavy vehicles go over them without damaging the track. That was one of the things we investigated Planning and Building Committee.
Okay, so that kind of answers that. So it isn't really, in total cost, much of a difference doing it one way versus the other.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions on the track?
Can you get
David?
Sorry.
I have two questions. Does not having 8 lanes keep us from being able to host like the major competitions, or how does that affect?
Can't host a state meet unless you got 8 lanes.
Okay. Do we have plans to host a state meet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then the second question was, is the 2 extra lanes something that can be added later without too much interference with what we would have? Or is that something that really has to be done now?
I
or
think
never?
just my opinion, looking at the asphalt underlayment and everything that has to be done as far as the subsurface conditions, putting in the drainage where the drainage should be, putting the retaining wall where it should be, and all the upset and disturbance in close proximity to the 6 lanes, I think it'd be something you'd want to do right now if you're going to do it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
You also would run into a matching problem of putting on those 2 outside lanes to match the ones that are there. And you got to have it bouncing up and down different. I got Jordan next and then Bill. Bill, I saw your hand go up.
Do you know the difference between a 6-lane and an 8-lane, roughly? The cost differential? I know you've got retaining wall and
I believe
and those
the other figure we discussed was around 290,000, and this one's where 430.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the track? Okay. Any other questions on the maintenance budget? Chuck Mower.
I know at this point it may seem like such a small thing in comparison to the other weighty financial interests of the district, but I've been sitting here a few years now looking at these kicked-in panels here on the front of the stage, and I'd even probably feel better if you told me that they were actually funded at some point, but some far more pressing thing caused those funds to be transferred. So do you think we can find some money to actually do that, or can we find a position in the budget to at least fund it so we have more money to fund something else that we could transfer it to?
Well, I could say with the kick-tin panels, I've looked at them over 5 years or 6 or a long time, maybe 10 or 15 years. We have done a number of repairs, and they've been repaired before in the past. It has been my thought at some points to replace them, but they're, as you rightfully mentioned, the funds have been going other places, and before I end up expending money on the face of that, I have other projects that I feel that frankly needed it a little bit more. But I'm not saying that we haven't and we won't repair that, and we'll take another look at that, absolutely.
Pardon my tongue in cheek, but is that on the 30-year plan?
Well, I'm sure it's going to be there for a long time, and we'll probably repair it over the 30 years, every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, we have to remember that the material you're looking at was acquired by Jim O'Neill because it came from a bowling alley. So you can notice the semblance of things without the little markings for the lanes. Those were taken off. But it is kind of vintage, so we'll look at repairing that and sprucing it up a
You could
little
put,
bit.
roof panels there as you take them off the middle school.
And it's one of those things, as we talk about it, I don't mean to joke about it, but it has been on my radar. It's something that's bothered me. So I understand what you're saying. And it has been repaired a number of times, and it still needs to be repaired at this point, I'm sure.
It's one of the things in the cafeteria that doesn't look new and fresh and cleaned up. I suppose putting some steel or something up on it, maybe that'll stop them from kicking it in, because then they'd break their toe trying to hit the steel.
Well, I do understand, and it's we've repaired it. I've actually done repairs to the middle school stage, the fascia of that also, but we'll definitely address it.
Okay. Any other questions for maintenance? Carol, you got anything else?
I don't have any other question other than I will give a gentle nudge to Tom of if he can arrange for the next meeting we have to have that fan turned off in advance. I would very much appreciate it.
Well, Carol, I will have you know that Tom attempted Monday to make sure that it would shut off at 7 o'clock. He even made it a point of telling me that. So apparently the timer wasn't working properly this time.
Okay.
And I don't know, how did you finally get it shut off anyway?
Yeah. I mean, it's a nuisance to the people that are there in the room, but trying to do this by telephone, it makes it almost unhearable when it's on.
The unfortunate part, it wasn't an automatic fan, which the automatic fan did turn back, as we all know at 7 o'clock. So that did what it was supposed to. It was a manual fan actually turned on inside the kitchen itself. So it was no more than walking into the kitchen, exploring where the noise was, turning the switch, and it shut itself off.
Okay. It's just Tom isn't necessarily going to be there for our next meeting, so I just wanted to make him aware in advance that it really
Tom
would
will
be
show me where the
appreciated if he
switch
can
is.
make sure about it.
I'll make sure Matt knows where the switch is.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything for Tom and the maintenance department? My comment is, you keep the schools looking beautiful. And you have a go-to budget that gets cut the most of any budget in the school district. And thank you.
Thank
And have a good night.
Thanks.
Last up for us to review is the district-wide budget. And now we get to see the superintendent and the assistant along with the business manager. And I think now is a good time for you all to say who you are and what your job is at the district. And then we'll get started.
Fine, thank you. I'm the superintendent, Marge Chaffrey, to my left. The assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, Dr. Mark McLaughlin. To my right, our business administrator, Matt Chevanel.
Thank you, Marge. Liaisons were myself, David Ilg, Jordan, and Carol. Madam Superintendent, which way would you like to proceed?
I would be very pleased to have you and the other liaisons present our budget.
Okay. Well, as I said, we did meet with them on Monday morning. Nice snacks. That was nice to have. You will notice the operating budget is up 2.2%, total budget. And the majority of that are capital projects, new roof and a new track. There was also more paving, but that had gotten taken out. There is when you look at your book, a 12.2% increase in health insurance, but when you look at the sheet for the health insurance, you say to yourself, wait a minute, it didn't, when you look at the numbers, it didn't go up 12.2%. And as Matt had explained, we've had a lot of change in what insurance policies employees took and how they go about paying for it. And I imagine he's going to expand upon that a little later. The good news is there's only about 2 people left on the JY plan, which they are personally paying about $10,000 a year to have that plan, because the school district only pays a certain amount, and it's based on the Matthew Thornton HMO plan. And I would ask my other colleagues, and we'll start with David here on the list. Anything else you would like to add?
I think you covered it all. I had a bagel during that.
With cream cheese?
Whole grain with cream cheese. But I want to thank.
How was it?
I want to thank the superintendent and the assistant superintendent for that.
Okay.
I ate it during that. We had both meetings together, so I ate it
I
during
would
the
like you to
second
know
half.
we learned from the field on this one, because we hadn't treated you before, so we learned from the field.
Jordan?
All good.
All good. Carol Lang?
I don't really have anything. I'll just say that while everybody else was enjoying those snacks, I'll really appreciate it when the technology gets so good that you can have it come through the phone and to me here. But other than that, I don't have anything.
I told you it would save you one.
Well, actually, Matt was so kind as to actually send me a photograph.
I did that while we were in the meeting because I
Yes,
didn't want her
I
to feel
saw her.
left out, so I sent her a picture of it all.
Yeah, because that was the first. That was well received. All right. It's all up to you now.
So I'm going to have Matt highlight 2 or 3 of what we consider the significant areas, and you have picked out that the bulk of this budget is the 4 items that you talked about with maintenance. Because if you looked at those items, if you took those items to the side, we are a level-funded budget. So that's a big summary.
So, in essence, the district-wide budget, we're fairly fortunate in that a lot of things went our way. We did not have an increase in the New Hampshire retirement rates, so there wasn't that big bump as in years past. It could have added another $500,000 to this budget easily. We didn't have a transportation increase cost for 16-17. The rates are remaining the same as in 15-16, so that was able to be level funded across the board. We had a reduction in the amount of our bonded debt, an amount of around $54,000, and a lot of things as far as that goes. And the benefits side, the health insurance, because of the change in the demographic and how many 2-persons families and singles you have. Every year there's turnover in our staff, both in our support staff and in our classified staff, the teachers. and that turned over into a favorable condition for us, and that the 12.2 didn't turn into like $1 million+ increase. It turned into around $295,000 increase. So in essence, that's the large increase in this budget. Other areas are the contracted services line, which buys our bandwidth, which buys our Power School student information system, which is the hub of the universe here for us. It buys the school messaging service that we have that allows us to now send emails to parents, because we've been cultivating those over the past year and a half, 2 years, in order to get out of the paper pushing backpack mail scenario. I think we'll probably still always have that at perhaps the elementary schools, but parents like to get emails, or they like to get things in a PDF file where they can just take it instead of putting it in a paper file or doing something like that, or saying, oh my gosh, where's the permission slip the morning of the field trip? I think we've all been there as parents. You can't find it, and you've got to sign it and go to the school. Now you would have it as a PDF on your computer. You could go into the little folder where you keep it. You could print it up. You could sign it and give that to your child before she goes crying out the door. So it's good to have it that way. We also, in that area, are enhancing and we're putting into practice an online registration module that's attaching into Power School. We're really excited about that. So, for the future, you always have to make visitations in certain areas where you have to provide original copies of birth certificates and whatnot when you're coming into the district. But for the day-to-day, the people who are already registered, the people who have Power School accounts already, which is a lot of parents in the high school, they have Power School accounts, they'll be able to go into this online registration piece, and if they have another cell phone that they have, or if they've changed a job or something like that, they'll be able to go in, change that information directly, as opposed to not doing it or calling up the office and having the office do it. They're going to be doing it. The information will be submitted by them, and then it'll be parked for an administrative assistant to look at it to make sure the data's in the right format. If it's a 603 area code, did you put the 603 in there? Because the system needs the 603. You just can't put the regular 424, whatever it is. So that'll be a double check to make sure that the data going in there is clean before it gets migrated in. And that's something we're really kind of looking forward to doing, is to have the online registration, so you won't be filling out. You'll go in, you can have kids in multiple schools and multiple grades and go in and put all their information in there, and you won't have to fill out a card for each one and go back and forth and everything like that. And hopefully, we're starting that off in February with kindergarten registration, so we'll see how that goes for them. It's a small pilot group, and you want to start off small with anything like that as far as rolling out a new technology. And we'll hit some bumps in the roads, we'll identify those, and we'll work correctly. The nice part about the software that was put in for this effort is it, depending upon what grade level your child's in, it brings you to different trees. So if you're, third grade or something like that, it'll give you the elementary tract. If you're a high school student or whatnot and you're changing a few things, it's going to bring you to the high school track, because it's going to ask you a different series of questions. So you're not going to be sitting there as an elementary school parent answering questions about what kind of co-curricular activities does my 2-year-old like? Are they into the lacrosse team or something? So you're not going to be bothered with that. So we tried to make it as elegant as possible, if you can call software elegant. Some of it is, but hopefully it'll be a good thing for the community, and everybody will enjoy the flexibility and the clean nature of it all. So that's one of the things we have in the district budget. But other than that, it's an unremarkable budget in totality, really. That's it. Thanks.
Marge?
No, I think he's done a proper summary, so we're just ready to answer your questions.
Okay.
Have them?
Questions for the superintendent's office? None? That's amazing. Carol, you got any questions?
No, nothing.
Okay. Matt, would you go over the list of decreases that were done to the budget? It's just if you can, especially explaining the credit for the retirees
Yep.
and the paraeducator. We all know about the paving one.
Yeah, when you go to your sheet that says Tier 1 cuts, if you still have it, there was an effort to take around $470,000 out of the operating budget to bring it from a 2.9% increase to around a 2.3% increase overall. So that necessitated it going from around a $2 million increase to like 1.6. So there was the paving that went around the high school for $227,000. There was $10,000 taking out of painting district-wide, general painting that needs to be done in the classrooms and the hallways. We'll scale back on that a little bit. There was whiteboards that we were doing to continue creating that, but the whiteboards are outstripping the capabilities we have to project on the whiteboards or use them in such a fashion, so we decided to have that and just put $8,000 in the budget remaining. We had an error in postage miscalculation, so we just took the $200 hit and offered that up as a reduction right off the bat. And then there was some portable chairs, folding chairs, and the caddies that they sit into. The caddies are nothing but a carrying device that you stack chairs up on, and you can move them around from one location to the other. Then we get down to the area where you want me to kind of highlight over is, we have at least 7 people retire a year per the teacher's contract, but we have much more than that who usually leave us for retirement. And what we do is we take a look at everybody specifically in their positions, and we look over past historical data as to what we've hired to replace that particular position. Like we've got a standard for an elementary school teacher versus a special ed high school teacher. Usually the replacements for anybody who in the special ed area, seeing it's a highly sought field, usually comes in a little bit higher than that of an elementary school teacher who we can pick up at probably first, second years out of college, maybe with a master's degree or close to a master's degree, as opposed to somebody in the special ed area where we tend to get more experienced type people. So when we went through the entire list of who we perceive to be retiring, because it's not carved in stone yet, we looked at what their replacements would cost, and we came out with a figure of it would be around $206,000 less. So that's why you see the various lines right now, because it's sprinkled throughout the budget. And some of the lines that we have in the budget only have 1 or 2 people in there, so I kind of chose not to do that, so I wouldn't be broadcasting the fact that this teacher in this particular position is thinking about retiring for next year, so it's a confidentiality thing. However, after the budget passes or whatever, we definitely put that out there and allocate the reductions. The last item we had is charter schools. If there's a special needs child that goes to a charter school in the state of New Hampshire and they need services, I think you heard John talk to this when he was here the other night, you have to provide a para-educator. We have 1 in there right now. We were going for 1.5, but we're going to, at this point in time, make a educated guess that we're still going to rely on just needing the one paraeducator for the child going to the charter school as opposed to 1.5. So that was a reduction that special ed was willing to make. And so that kind of put us to the total of $469,097 as far as the reductions go.
Okay. Any questions on the operating budget? Matt, are you prepared or not prepared to talk about the default budget tonight?
I thought you'd ask that question, so I'm prepared to ask about that.
All right, if you could please
What the default
go over
budget,
that.
yeah, what the default budget is last year's budget that is passed. Then you go and you look for any contractual obligations that you have to meet, any things of a one-time nature that were in the budget that are not likely to reoccur in subsequent budgets, just not the next year budget, but subsequent budgets. Let's say, I like to use the analogy of, if we bought a dump truck or something like that. We don't buy dump trucks every year. So if there was a dump truck in the budget, we would probably move to take that out. But if we're a police department and we buy cruisers every year, we would probably leave the cruisers in because that's something likely to reoccur in following budgets. So basically, you take last year's budget. I had a benefits increase in total, including the health, the FICA, the New Hampshire retirement, the Medicare, everything like that. And New Hampshire retirement did go up because there was a support staff increase that's in this contract. And so the amount applied towards the support staff area went up proportionally. So there was a benefits increase of around $400,000, a reduction in debt service by $54,000. The contracted salaries that are in here, as far as for non-teachers, went up $321,000. And special education, when all was said and done, with the out-of-district placements and everything like that, went up a modest $118,000. So you cum those together, and you get your default budget of $71,466,383, which is $816,915 less than the proposed operating budget as it was presented to you by the board after their last round of cuts.
Now, as you all know, we don't vote on the default budget, but it's good to have that information. Does anybody have any questions of Matt regarding the default budget? Any other questions on the operating budget or anything to do with the schools in general while we have the superintendent here on the hot seat? I just want to say thank you. And you keep doing a great job. And you make our job a lot easier. And I personally appreciate it. I am going to jump ahead to other before we go to the mass amounts of public we have here who want to speak. Next week, February 2nd, we'll be meeting here. We'll be reviewing warrant articles, and I know of at least one that we have to vote on. I'm not sure of any others. And we'll have our work session on the operating budget and any warrant articles. And as usual, if there is an adjustment you want to make to the budget, please make sure you have the account number, the page number in this big book so that we can all flip to it and then effectively discuss it and vote on it. The plan is we will do it as we've done in the past. We're going to go department by department if there are any adjustments to be made. And then we will have a second bite at the apple, if you will, at the meeting at 7 o'clock on February 9th, before the public hearing. If there are any further adjustments we decide we want, and also at the February 9th meeting, by then, if there are any petition-moneyed warrant articles, we will deal with them at that time, because they have to turn them in by the close of business that day. If you need information on something, please get a hold of me, email, phone, and I will get it funneled to the proper person. And Carol, do you have any questions you want to ask?
No, I think I'm all set.
Okay. We are going to disconnect the phone call at this time.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Now we come to public participation, and everybody's disguised as a blue seat. I will close public participation. We'll go back to other. Does anybody else have any other items of interest they want to bring to the Budget Committee? Seeing none, I will entertain that great motion. So moved by Mr. Cummings. Do I have a second? I saw Mr. Hanson's hand up. Not debatable. All in favor of adjournment, please raise your hand. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. Good night. We'll see you here next Tuesday night, 7 o'clock.
This is what you've come to me with. This is what's going to make sense to the board from that level. I don't think that we need to know every single little